An options request represents a request for information about the communication options available at a certain URI. It allows a client to determine the options and/or requirements associated with a resource or the capabilities of an API. In this demo, we're going to add support for options, and we'll do that on our authors controller. Let's add a new action here. Get authors options. No async code in there, so we don't need to return a task. The attribute we want to use here is HTTP options. We're not passing through a route template, although you can. And that means that we are talking about the options for API/authors. If we have a look at the code, we see that at that route we are allowed a GET and HEAD request and a POST request. So that is what we could add to our options. Options tell us whether or not we can get the resource, post to it, delete it, and so on. It thus works on resource level. These options should be returned in the allow response header as a comma-separated list of method names. So all we need to do to support this is add a new header. We do that by calling into response.headers.add, pass through the header name, which is allow, and we pass through the allowed methods, get, head, post, and obviously options. A successful options request should return a 200 OK status code even when empty. But when it's empty, the response must include a content length field with field value of 0. But we don't need to do that manually. ASP.NET Core automatically adds that for us. We could, by the way, include a response body which describes the options. But the format of that is not covered by the HTTP standard. You can input something if you want, but for the demo, we'll leave it empty. Let's give this a try. There's an options request in our Postman collection. We send it to API/authors. We get back an empty response. The content length header is set to 0, and we see our allow header here with values get, head, post, and options. We've been working with put and post in this module, and we have used the content type header to signify the media type of the request body. Most of the time that was application JSON. But what would happen if we didn't provide a content type header? Let's try that by resending one of our previous requests. A post to create a new author, but without a content type header pass-through. We get back a 415 unsupported media type status code. This means that the origin server is refusing to service the request because the payload, which is the request body, is in a format that is not supported by this method on the target resource. We didn't pass through a media type, so our API has no idea of how to handle this. In other words, you always need to provide a content type header with a value when providing a request body. And that is in line with the self-descriptive message constraint. But what if you want to support other types of input like XML? Especially when you're working on an API that integrates between different systems, this can be a requirement. You might have a system that provides the input in XML, but at the same time you still want the output to be provided in JSON for, say, a client-side Angular app. That is possible thanks to the fact that input and output formatters, which we remember from the previous module, are separated in ASP.NET Core. We have already worked with XML output. In the next demo, we're going to have a look at these two separated lists by looking into XML input.